Hey guys, so this is a fantastic segment that Aaron Mate put out on a Jimmy Dore show, and I will highly recommend everyone checks it out. It really covers well the position of Zelensky in Ukraine and the Ukrainian government and in his position, and I'll play this video and I'll add a little bit more to it as well. So this is a video of him interviewing somebody, Cohen, I can't remember the exact name, but let's play this video and have a look.
This is a bit of a stretch, and maybe it doesn't mean a whole lot to your generation, but he ran a kind of George McGovern campaign. The difference was McGovern got wiped out, and Zelensky won by, I think, 71, 72%. He won an enormous mandate to make peace. So that means he has to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. And there are various formats, right? There's the so-called Minsk format, which involves the German and the French. There's bilateral directly with Putin. But his willingness, and this is what's important and not well reported here, his willingness to deal directly with Putin, which his predecessor, Poroshenko, was not, or couldn't, or whatever reason, actually required considerable boldness on Zelensky because there are opponents of this in Ukraine and they are armed. Some people say they're fascist, but they're certainly ultra-nationalist. And
said they'll remove and kill him. So what he's saying there, now this video goes on a little bit more, but in essence what he goes on to talk about is that Zelensky was elected on the mandate of peace. So the majority of the Ukrainian people wanted to have the conflict settled peacefully. And what was happening is these far-right nationalists were bombing the Donbass, and the general Ukrainian government didn't have control of it. They were also embedded within the political system, and it was a massive shit show. And they allowed Zelensky to become kind of the president, the figurehead. So Zelensky was more or less voted in by the people of Ukraine. And a big part of it was also, by the way, that Zelensky was a Russian speaker. He made that point a lot of the times. He even poked fun at the nationalists. I think there's videos of him joking around how he wanted to buy Mein Kampf in Ukraine and was all sold out. So he was liked by the people because he did take this neutral position. He was seen as a Russian supporter. He had to actually learn how to speak Ukrainian properly, which is such an insult when you see him, and such a lie, by the way, when you see him pretending to forget Russian words on TV. That's an act, because he's an actor who's a very weak man. And he had a literal gun pointed to his head. As we see here, this is the Right Sector co-founder, saying that if he goes against the things that they actually want. So Zelensky was allowed to be, the president of Ukraine, and he was allowed to look after the economy or things like this. But if he went against the things the nationalists wanted, he would lose his life. He would die. Now here is a video of him trying to negotiate with the nationalists who were fighting.
О том, что демилитаризация, украинский экономика, мы бы хотели это все обсудить и формализировать, чтобы потом не было как у Петра Алексеевича.
Ты со мной хочешь формализировать отношения?
В меморандуме.
And what I wanted to show in this video is the attitude of the nationalist here to him. So he's the president, and this is and also his attitude. He's sort of acting as well, and to me it brings up that scene in the Game of Thrones where the guy says that, I am the king, and oh god, I should remember these people's names. The names will come to me later on, but he says, I am the king, and then his uncle says, well, no true king has to say that he's king. And that's how Zelensky comes across to me. He's like, I am the president, you gotta listen to me. And the nationalists are just laughing at them. Now there's another clip as well in the Vice documentary where they say that the attitude towards the Ukrainian government is if they try to go in and make them stop attacking the Donbass and, actually adhere to the peace deal that Ukraine had signed, then they would just surround the Ukrainian army and kill them all. Again, the nationalists were the most powerful, best trained, most radical force, and it still is in Ukraine. And the reason for that is because they were funded by and trained up by America, because it suited America's purpose to continue this war with Russia, as well as Israel to an extent. Israel was happy to fund the Nazis through Kolomoisky, and the reason they did that is because they were happy to see Nazis fighting Russia, basically, and killing each other. It suited their political goals and geopolitical goals, because Russia is an ally of Iran and all this kind of intertwining things that go into it. But when it comes to Ukraine, this is what was
Я
happening.
с тобой?
Не я с вами, а все люди, которые в этом процессе, те, которым болит за Украину.
Яка капитуляция, про що ти?
Формализация.
Я
Это
пришел,
называется
тебе
подписание
сказал, вы
меморандума.
оружие вывезете, а ты меня переводишь стрелки.
Так я вам второй момент уже озвучил. Я вас услышал, вы
Смотри,
сказали.
ты мне вообще не можешь никакие ультиматумы озвучивать, Денис, ты не понял.
Так я вам ультиматум, я говорю, это бы люди
Нам зайти
говорили.
оружие забрать? или что?
При чем здесь? Я
Я
вам
не
говорю
понимаю,
за
чем мы
второй
закончим
момент.
сейчас разговор.
Так мы
Пацаны.
нормально общаемся,
Ну
нормально
так и давай
общаемся.
нормально общаться.
Ну, никто же вас не пытается макнуть никуда.
Ничто.
So basically, and I gotta upload this whole video because I haven't seen it on YouTube, but I'm gonna upload the whole thing. And this is him, you know. It's also a very well produced video, as you can see, and I think it was done to make him like be perceived as strong. But to me, it comes across like as weak, as him being weak. And all these guys are kind of just laughing at what he's saying because they know that he has no power. And the only reason he's even acting up like this is because he's surrounded by a bunch of armed guards himself. So I don't know if you can see them, but he's surrounded by a bunch of the Ukrainian military. So he kind of acts tough, but really he isn't tough. And they know it, and the nationalists know it, and they treat him with zero respect. So that was the situation, and I don't know if he truly did want to actually change things. Maybe he did, but now he's just a puppet, basically, torn between the bribes of America and the West, and having a gun put to his head by the nationalists. Here's another video of the attitudes of people to Zelensky.
Чи змінилася ваша думка про нього?
Dmitry Alexandrovich, massive, and I've exposed this guy. And you've seen his proxies as well in the propaganda war.
Більш упертий і більш відморожений хлопець, ніж можна було очікувати. Бачите, ми от ніколи не вгадаєш, ми ж весь час помиляємося. От в цій ситуації виявилося краще. От я злився на український народ, ну як він міг обрати одним з національних символів єврея? Ну, євреєм може бути голова Нацбанку, ну навіть прем'єр-міністр. Ну, президент – це такий самий національний символ, як прапор, гімн і так далі. Він має бути національним, він має бути українець. Виявилося, що якимсь боком зараз найкраще, що він єврей, ну спробуйте пред'явіть зараз нацизм.
So it's funny how racist this is, but this is a very prominent guy, by the way. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers on YouTube, spitting his nonsense. And I've already exposed how he's prominent in a lot of these heroes that pro-Ukrainian channels portray, like the Belarusian and things like this. How they actually linked to this guy. So he's running a propaganda campaign currently. That's his job. And people who say that, all these Nazis were filtered out of the military, you see him in a military brigades, even though he's doing a propaganda run, he's still, in full uniform in a military brigade running around there. So to say that these Nazis somehow were taken out of the Ukrainian military is totally false. If anything, they were given the control of the Ukrainian military. That's how they were actually, what do they call it? Integrated into the Ukrainian military, the official Ukrainian military, but they really just took control of it. And this is the attitude, he's a Jew, and we don't like it, but we don't like the fact that the Ukrainian people voted for him. And he's an unprincipled guy, and by the principles he's really talking, he could be talking about, first of all, that just in general Zelensky is unprincipled, which is true. Zelensky, again, is a very, very weak guy. He's an actor, okay? So he was just an actor, and he was put there by Kolomoisky, and he convinced the people that he could do something, but really he was ultimately very weak. And but the other principle they're talking about is their principles of fighting Russia to the last Ukrainian, because these are radicals, and they are backed by America. Because the general population of Ukraine, first of all, probably the majority of Ukrainians would be what are quote-unquote, ethnic Russians, especially if you take in the Donbass, or at least the majority would be Russian-speaking. So it's not a small population of Ukraine, but are like the nationalist Ukrainians, but I'd say they're almost in the minority. And definitely the ones that are radical are about 10% of the country. But as you can see, because they are radical, and because Ukraine is more or less apathetic, and there's also, there is this desire, I'd say, for most of Ukrainians to join the EU as opposed to Russia because of the financial benefit they think they will gain. Although now with the nationals really pushing the nationalism down the throat and destroying Russian culture, tearing down bust of Putin and stuff and shouting banner slogans, that would definitely, and I don't know, I don't have too much of an idea of what is actually happening in Ukraine, but I've got some idea of what is actually happening there on the ground, and that's going to piss a lot of people off. So that's the kind of things, that's the kind of attitude, and that's the position of Zelensky. And again, I highly recommend you check out the segment. I highly recommend you check out the this whole, oh, here, this is the video. Oh, there you go. I honestly didn't even see this. I didn't scroll down all this way, but here it is, demanding that neo-Nazis lay down. Yeah, that's it. That's the video there. So, oh, this is brilliant. Oh, this is what I mean. People do this job better than I do, so you should just probably listen to them as opposed to me. But this is great. So yeah, check this page out. Check out the video they put out. It's fantastic. Actually, I haven't watched this video to the end. Maybe he even plays the video I played. Let's have a look. Maybe. No, he didn't play it. But that's a really good video to show, this one where Zelensky is kind of talking to the Azov battalion. And look, I feel, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. I probably would have been killed, because I'm kind of principled, but it's a very hard position to be in. And it really was up to America to not fund these radicals, these fools who want to continue this war. And now they're dragging Ukrainians into vans. Ukrainians that definitely don't want to fight, probably ethnic Russians or Russian speakers, or just neutral people who don't want anything to do with this thing. We're dragging them into vans and sending them to the front and pretending like all of Ukraine shares their ideology, but really they don't. And you have these other documentaries, another good documentaries, the Vice one, where first of all they say, there's a few different good quotes. So there's one quote from one of the nationalists saying, "What will you do if the Ukrainian army will come and like storm you and make you stop actually shooting, the people in the Donbass and bombing civilians?" Because they see those people in the Donbass as subhumans, genetically inferior people, because they are racist radicals. So that's what they do. They just bomb indiscriminately out of like hatred, out of revenge or whatever it is for their people being killed. They just bomb civilians there, and that's what they've been doing for the last 8 years. So they say, what will you do if the Ukrainian government tries to stop you? Well, we'll just surround them and kill all of them. So that's the attitude towards the Ukrainian government, because they were the most well-armed and well-trained by the American military. Did I mention this already? I feel like maybe I mentioned this already. If I did, I'm sorry, but I'll just mention it again. So they were the best armed and most radical people, and the other thing they say is, we don't want to join the actual Ukrainian army because they don't believe in these things as strongly as we do. And it's very, very telling what kind of people these rebels, they're called in the Vice documentary, are. And it would be very hard to stand against them, and they would need the support of America, but they certainly didn't have the support of America. America supported the radicals, they supported war, they supported bleeding Russia out, and here we are 1 year on with lots of people dead and no end in sight. Okay guys, that's what I wanted to make the video about. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check all these segments I talked about out. I'll put links. All the best.